The fashion industry and the image they put out for what young girls and women should look like in their advertisements increases the sexualization of girls and has the potential for dangerous eating disorders as well as other psychological issues.
What did you do while you were in the fashion industry?
I did product development and production, so for knits and sweaters. And so I would work between the designers and the factories in creating their designs.
Where?
I worked at Calvin Klein for 5 years. I worked for Isaac Mizrahi for a year, and I worked at Ralph Lauren for 5 years.
While you were in the fashion industry, did you notice any shifts in the style of clothing for young women, not necessarily kids?
In women's clothing, it shifted tremendously because in the early 90s, everything was long and flowy. And then throughout, from there, and it was very dressy. And then the jean market started developing in the mid-90s and became very popular. Calvin Klein being one of the biggest jean companies out there in the beginning. And from there, the clothes became tighter, more revealing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Since you were at Calvin Klein for the time of the iconic Kate Moss and Mark Wahlberg advertisements, what effect did you think this had on the styles of clothing that came after, because it was such a monumental time in the fashion industry?
The clothing itself became denim before was just weekend wear. Young kids would wear it, but adults would not wear denim to work. You wouldn't. Casual Fridays were something very new. The development of jean and denim being a luxury wear and fashion changed all of clothing.
Do you think clothes and advertisements became more sexualized after the advertisements?
Of Marky Mark, and during that time period, right before Marky Mark, there was another campaign for Calvin Klein jeans, which, and that Marky Mark's was Calvin Klein underwear, if I recall correctly. Before the 2 seasons before that, there was a Calvin Klein jeans that was, I think, photographed by Stephen Meisel, that was very provocative. And
you think that kind of set the tone for
that
what was
started
to come?
setting the tone for the change in fashion for that market.
Yeah. When you were shopping for your daughters when they were young, did you find that there were some clothing styles that seemed somewhat inappropriate for their age?
For young children under the age of 10, no, I did not think that, or at least the places that I was
Well, this was also
shopping.
10 years ago.
And it was 10 years ago. The raciest stuff would probably have been at Justice.
Yeah.
And Limited 2, that was before that. But no, as the years have continued since then, yeah, I think clothes have gotten very provocative for younger kids.
I think as women's clothes get increasingly more risky, it trickles down into styles for younger girls.
Most definitely, because I think that everything becomes younger and younger, and young girls want to look older, so they start wearing it, and then the next line below them starts designing it because it's popular in that quadrant of people, so they want it for the next one and the next one. Yes.
What effect do you think that sexualizing young girls' clothing has on young girls?
No, I just think that girls are much more, if the clothing is fitted and on their body, they're much more aware of their body. I think that wearing a loose t-shirt and a pair of tan-skin pants when we were kids, you had no idea what your body looked like underneath it, or a loose pair of Levi jeans and an Oxford shirt. And nowadays, kids are wearing skin-tight clothing and tank tops, partial tank tops, tube tops, and you are so much more aware of your body and what it looks like and what it doesn't look like. And I think that kids are much more aware. I think that they're so much more critical of themselves than we ever were. And I think it's hard to be a teenage girl these days as a result of that.
Do you predict that this sexualization trend will increase as the future goes on?
Can't imagine clothes could get much smaller.
Yeah.
Or more sexual, but I could be absolutely wrong. I mean, you saw the the latest pants, the jeans from LF, which is just basically a waistband and seams, still for $198 bucks. But even though they're, as Poppy would say, half a pair of pants. But I can't imagine it could get more sexual than it already is.
We decided to go to the Trumbull Mall and take a look at the young girls section to see if there were any provocative or inappropriate styles at Justice and Target.
Skinny, 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 skinny. These images depicted here at Target may make children less comfortable with the way they look and may lead to them being uncomfortable with their bodies as they see only skinny models shown.
Look at these spandex. They're tiny. Who can wear these? It's a sports bra. Listen, no child of this age needs to be wearing a bra. None. No children need this.
We decided to interview Mr. Giacomo because we figured that she would have a good insight on body image and the way that girls dress at our school specifically. We asked her questions about our dress code and whether it's enforced or not at the school. We asked her questions about how girls dress this year versus other years in the past that she's worked here. We also asked her about whether or not male teachers and deans should approach female students about clothing and whether or not it's appropriate, just to avoid awkward confrontation. And we kind of got her opinion on all these matters. Does our school have a dress code?
Okay, so the formal dress code in the student handbook reads, in the interest of supporting the learning environment in and out of the classroom by minimizing distractions, Fairfield Ward High School has established a standard for student dress. The goal of the dress standard is to encourage dress that reflects an attitude of respect for oneself and for everyone in the Fairfield Ward High School community. The following guidelines will contribute to the safety and comfort of all members of our school community, as well as prepare students for higher education and the professional world. So the first one is clothing that promotes and depicts alcohol, drugs, tobacco, violent behavior, or sexually explicit, suggestive, degrading words and pictures are prohibited. Clothing should cover undergarments and should provide appropriate coverage at the midriff and neckline. And clothing that is too revealing or otherwise detracts from our educational environment will not be permitted. So that is the formal dress standard.
Okay, and do you think our school does a good job about enforcing this dress code?
I think we do a very good job at the first bullet because it's easy to point out a student that has an Absolute Vodka shirt or a Tito shirt or some type of drug reference. I think the other suggestions or guidelines can be a little bit more difficult to address.
Okay. And what are some of the changes in fashion of female students that you've seen in the past years while working here?
Well, I think our school, out of like 1,600 kids, it's pretty diverse. So I don't know that like fashion necessarily changes because we have some girls that wear super high jeans and they cover their whole body. You guys call them mom jeans. I take offense to that. But then there's others, the very short shorts. I mean, short shorts have been in forever, but all of a sudden they're short and loose and really don't cover anything. The other thing that definitely is new is kind of like the full-on see-through shirt, which has never been popular since people were fishnet in the 80s. So that is kind of coming back. I guess I'm more shocked at like the parents finding it acceptable like when their kids leave. But I also think wearing pajamas to the point of it should encourage dress that reflects an attitude of respect for this. I mean, coming in pajamas doesn't really reflect like an attitude of like respect for coming to school and being ready to learn. It looks more like you just rolled out of bed and you're here to do whatever. I don't know what you're doing in your pajamas. So, yeah.
And then, would you advise the male teachers and deans to direct the female students to you if they need to be dress coded in order to avoid awkward confrontation?
I think I don't know if it comes down to the size of the clothes or the way the clothes fit the person that makes the confrontation awkward. But I certainly would suggest any male teacher who is uncomfortable speaking to a student about midriff or low tops. There's enough females in the building, school counselors, teachers, counseling center, and myself as the dean, that we can address that with female students. I think some teachers are comfortable with it, but I think it could make a student very uncomfortable as well.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that male teachers at least consult with a female if they feel that's more comfortable. Yeah, more comfortable for the teacher and for the student.
Okay, thank you so much.
In today's age of social media, the media is having a catastrophic effect on the sexualization of girls. TV, the internet, music videos and lyrics, movies, magazines, sports media, and advertising often portray women and even girls as sexual objects. The frequent result, according to both an American Psychological Association task force and the Scottish Parliament, is harm to their self-image and unhealthy sexual development. Sexualization occurs when girls are led to value themselves in terms of sexual appeal, compare themselves to narrowly defined beauty standards, seeing themselves as sexual beings for others' use. Sexualization also contributes to eating disorders and depression, and to unrealistic expectations regarding sexuality. After analyzing 60 top-selling video games, 489 characters were found, 86% of them being male. The small percentage of female characters found were much more likely than male characters to be hypersexualized, meaning they would be depicted wearing partially nude clothing with large breasts and tiny waists. Mindful of today's sexualizing media, the American Psychological Association has some suggestions for countering these messages. Parents, teachers, and others can teach girls to value themselves for who they are rather than how they look. They can help girls and boys develop media literacy skills that enable them to recognize and resist the message that women are sexual objects and that a thin, sexy look is all that matters.
We also interviewed Lauren Cole, the social media and public relations manager for Joe's Jeans, to see how Joe's, Global Brands Group, and the industry as a whole sets out an image they want for their customers. But do you think that, overall, not just Joe's or GBG, all brands that you see, do you think that they're promoting, a specific image, not for just, young girls, but for, all women?
Well, I think it's important for a brand to, many brands have to kind of portray the type of girl they're trying to reach.
Okay.
Right? So I think that overall brands do need to do that, and that's important. Joe's does that, and she does that, and basically every brand will kind of, they'll use in their advertising the type of girl that they are trying to reach, or who they want their customer to be, or who they think their customer is. So yeah, not always negative. Sometimes it can be, but sometimes it can just be,
After learning about body image and how the media has affected sexualization of girls, we decided to relate it to a few psychological concepts. The idea of self-concept is all our thoughts and feelings about ourselves in answer to the question, who am I? One's body image has a huge impact on their self-esteem, which begins with how we see ourselves in a mirror. Often parents impact their child's body image by the idea of identification, which is a process by which, according to Freud, children incorporate their parents' values into developing their superegos. Since girls are so particular about their body image, unfortunately some may develop eating disorders such as anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. These disorders are often connected with families of high-achieving competitive nature. Those with eating disorders often have low self-evaluations of themselves and are overly concerned with how others perceive them, specifically their body image. Mothers of girls with eating disorders tend to focus on their own weight and their daughter's weight or appearance. In our society, unfortunately, women are expected to be skinny and have other prominent features that contribute to their body image. The idea of an attractive woman in our society is exclusive to women of a certain size, which is most often skinny. Our society fails to acknowledge that everyone is different and everyone has different preferences that regard body image.